Welcome to this week's episode of Two Angry Men, where Mark Geragos and Harvey Levin discuss OWTA, out with their asses. Is it the next new political movement? Enjoy.
What we expect is keep the government open, don't allow people to starve, which is gonna happen. God knows how many suicides when people can't feed their families. This is gonna get way worse. It's just at the edge of the cliff, and it's about to go over the cliff. Welcome to the Two Angry Men podcast. Mark, we have started a movement here at TMZ. I shouldn't make everybody on the staff co-sign. I have. And the movement is that I am fucking sick of Democrats blaming Republicans for this devastating shutdown and Republicans blaming Democrats. They cannot compromise, keep the government open. It is the baseline job of theirs to compromise and function. They can't. And my movement is called OWTA, out with their asses. I think the public should basically coalesce and vote everybody in Congress out of office. Even if you like your representative or senator, vote against everybody. They are not a functioning group. And we can send a message to Washington, D.C. that we expect that they can function as a body. It happened for 200 years, and it's not happening now, and we should get rid of them all if they can't open this government immediately, because there's going to be a midair collision with air traffic controllers who are now working as DoorDash drivers at night. There are people starving, and enough. And you want to play the blame game, you're never going to solve this problem. It's not the Democrats, it's not the Republicans, it's all of them.
So it's an interesting concept, but under your theory, which is vote them all out, what do you do? And is this theory limited to just Congress? Because we've got an election next week. For instance, a very hotly contested one in New York City, which I think is a template writ large for the country. So where do you come down on next week's when you do not have an incumbent since Eric Adams withdrew from the race?
It's not about New York. I mean, Mandami is going to win in New York. We know that. But this is about Congress. This is specifically about Congress. And when I see Mike Johnson with his bullshit talking about, it's the Democrats' fault, when he hasn't allowed Republicans to convene for more than a month, I mean, he's full of shit. And when Chuck Schumer says, we're ready to come to the table. I mean, look, pass a continuing resolution so at least the government is open, and then negotiate with them. And if they won't negotiate, make it part of your campaign. But each side has dug in. They will not compromise. And that's not what we expect. And what we expect is keep the government open. Don't allow people to starve, which is going to happen. And God knows how many suicides when people can't feed their families, and the stress that it causes. And again, with air traffic controllers, what do you think the end game is there when they're already understaffed, when they're already working overtime, when they're not getting a paycheck, being required to work overtime, and then they have to work at night to feed their family? So how do you think that ends? We know how it ends.
You're right. I know.
So that's why I'm saying Congress. I'm saying Congress.
If you do that, then there's nothing you can do. Isn't that short-sighted in the sense your theory falls apart because you have congressional elections generally, for the most part, every 2 years.
Right. No, always.
Right. So you have special elections is what I was thinking. But so you don't have the ability to hold them accountable right now.
No, you don't. I mean, you can't impeach them. So what I'm saying is, look, you should know that if you don't open the government in the next 48 hours, that when your time is up, when we can vote in the primary, because I'm not talking about general elections, I'm saying primary, every single member of Congress, 535 members, senators, representatives, primary them all and let the people who are running against them in the primaries know our expectation is we're going to vote for you, but we are going to hold you to the same thing we held them to. And if you dare close the government down, we're going to boot your asses out too.
Question, if I'm not mistaken, Congress still gets paid while there's a shutdown.
You're not mistaken. And it is a fucking outrage.
Yeah. And so why shouldn't Congress, if it's a government shutdown, and by the way, they have a lot of immunities. You'll remember during the whole kind of Me Too movement, it became apparent that Congress had immunized or sheltered themselves from full accountability.
They do this all the time. They do this all the time. I mean,
And-
everything that's onerous applies to everybody but them. And, and again, some of them make so much money that it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's not going to, that paycheck to them doesn't matter. Some it does, but I get it. That's
Well, by the way, some of them make so much money because there are no restrictions on
stocks. Yeah. I mean, it's
trading.
right. I mean, because they can do insider trading with impunity. So, it's just, it is so outrageous to me that we are watching, these leaders like chumps, and people are actually taking sides and saying, yeah, it's the Democrats. Yeah, it's the Republicans. And when they show polls, the polls are, who do you blame more? I saw this on CNN, the Democrats or the Republicans. And, they're blaming more Republicans than Democrats. But you know what? What about the option both? Because that's going to get more votes than either the Democrats are responsible or the Republicans. People are fed up. And what do? We should not just sit back. We had a congresswoman on TMZ Live this week, and Jasmine Crockett. And, she was saying the flaw in what you're saying is that a lot of people love their congressmen or congresswomen. A lot of people love them, and they're not going to vote against them. I have a congressman who I happen to really, really like, Ted Lieu. He's my congressman, and I really like him. But I'm going to vote against him. And not because I don't like him. I'm going to vote against him because I think everybody should vote against every single member if they can't open the government. I mean, that should be the basic requirement of being a legislator. And Mark, we are more than a month in. The Republicans haven't even come to Washington, D.C. I mean, they're starting to more and more be there, but Mike Johnson will not convene a session. And, and then Democrats, Chuck Schumer, I think it's true that Chuck Schumer is scared shitless of the left wing of his party. And he wants to show that he can stand up to Trump and be really hard. And that's why he's doing what he's doing. I think there is some truth to that, but it's inexcusable. And they are allowing the government, both sides, to shut down the way it has.
Yeah, I don't dislike your theory. I just think it's not practical in this sense. I think that people tend to vote their pocketbooks, and there is this better than most, there is there's a phenomena that if you just put your head down and wait, that eventually the public's going to forget.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with the vote them out, as I say, is there's no current election. So who's going to remember?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And I think you're right. I mean, people have a very short memory span, and you're right. It's a year away. You're
right.
You are so right. But something bad is going to happen within the next year to allow us to remember what they did. And Mark, I got to tell you, I really see this becoming a calamity, because the longer they wait, who's going to blink? Are the Democrats going to blink? Do you think Chuck Schumer's going to blink?
No, I don't for a second think Chuck.
Do you think Mike Johnson's going to blink?
I think Mike Johnson might, because I think that there's more to his calculation than his party. In this sense, we have seen that they have not sworn in as last time I looked, the newly elected, specially elected Democrat from the Southwest. I forget if it was New Mexico
It's New
or Arizona.
Mexico. Right.
And she was the 218th vote
For
to
Epstein.
for Epstein. And you can talk about your theory is actually kind of the theory that I've talked about for years in terms of the Armenian caucus. It's the APAC kind of theory that if there's somebody who votes against what they consider the interest of Israel, they will primary that person out of existence. So you're taking that theory and expanding it to if you get primaried out. It was also used, I think, very effectively by the Tea Party. The Tea Party they primaried people. Elon Musk, we had a episode months ago where Elon had said, I don't have to do it to everybody, but he could be effective by primarying out some of the key districts so that it would send a message. I think that's a more effective strategy because you could say if you targeted the people in key leadership positions in Congress, the public may not have a continuing memory because it'll depend on what's the stock market doing at that time, what are grocery prices, what are gas prices, what are the things that impact you every single day. Those are what you primarily, at least if you believe polling, what people are going to vote on. But if you have raised kind of the specter of the people in leadership positions, Mike Johnson, the whip, the Hakeem Jeffries, on both sides of the aisle, and you primary them, then you may get somewhere. But then what do you do when if you listen to Jasmine Crockett and she says,
They're all saying it. They're all basic. Well, not all of them. I mean, I'm just so stunned by Marjorie Taylor Greene that she is broken with MAGA on this issue. But, there are some who are breaking, but a lot of them are just, they just toe the party line. And, you replace one with another. And I don't think that answers it. I don't think that solves the problem. And so what do you do, when, I agree with you that it's going to be hard to remember, but
right, that's my word.
it is a year away. And look, we are entering this period of chaos now. We have Prop 50 coming up in California on Tuesday, where we have to decide what are we going to do? Do we want to counteract what Texas did and basically gerrymander 5 more Democratic seats? And I think it's going to pass. But now all of a sudden, other states are going to counter California. And so it is becoming such a mess right now that, I think the one thing that everybody can agree on is Congress sucks right now. It just sucks. And everybody feels that way. And
So,
yeah,
so let
people
me
will say, oh,
explain
I'll
this.
blame the Democrats and blame the Republicans. They blame Congress. And that's why I think there's an opening here.
So your theory is great conceptually because for those who aren't in the weeds on Prop 50 is being promulgated, if you will, by Governor Newsom. It is at least what he is articulating is if they are going to gerrymander, kind of redraw the maps in so-called red states to get more congressional seats in a way prophylactically to keep the House, that California is going to countermand that by Prop 50. Obviously, or maybe it's not so obvious, former Governor Schwarzenegger is anti that because he's the one who put in
The Independent Commission.
The Independent Commission. And so we're now going to take it from independent and we're going to go back to highly partisan. So we're going to have this partisan back and forth. One way to solve that is your solution, which is vote them all out.
OWTA.
Yeah. There is something there if the public has a memory. But as you know, with TMZ as a perfect template, my day job is to advise clients, just put your head down because in 72 hours, somebody else is going to do something even more stupid than you just did, and it'll pass. And that's the problem, is that we live in a very fast moving kind of attention deficit disorder writ large collective consciousness.
I agree with you. I mean, it's hard for me to argue that, over the last 20 years covering pop culture, that's exactly what I've seen. And you're just right. There is one exception to it where people do remember, and the exception is COVID. People still remember the problems that came from COVID, both from the government and just generally from the disease. And I think that has etched into people's memories in a very unique way, that people are still angry at our government for, some would say bullying parents into keeping their kids out of school, angry that maybe the CDC, overstated things that they didn't know for sure, angry that people were canceled for being allegedly xenophobic, for saying things that ended up being true. And I think that that has lingered for 5 years. So I agree with you that just about everything gets forgotten over a short period of time, but there are some select things that don't. And I don't think we're seeing the worst of what is to come. Realize we are talking at 1 o'clock Pacific time on Friday. Tomorrow, the SNAP benefits expire. This weekend, people are going to be getting their health insurance premiums that are going to go up dramatically. God knows what's going to happen in the air with these air traffic controllers and the airlines. And this is going to get way worse than it is right now. It's just at the edge of the cliff, and it's about to go over the cliff. I think we're just about to go over the cliff. So I don't know whether this reaches the proportions of what we saw with COVID, but it could.
The interesting thing about this, Leo, one of the interesting things, I hadn't thought about it in terms of COVID, because COVID did make, in a lot of cases, kind of strange bedfellows. I think about COVID and I think about the current Deputy Attorney General for Civil Rights, Harmeet Dillon. I kind of, even though Harmeet and I were on opposite ends of the ideological spectrum, she and I ended up both suing the governor and suing various governmental entities for kind of the nonsense they were engaged in. And you gave a pretty good kind of litany of them. I just remember arresting people, paddle boarders on the beach, or bulldozing things on the beach, which were just utterly absurd at the time. Or I remember the outdoor dining and saying you couldn't do outdoor dining. And then when the health czar in California, I'll never forget, basically saying, yeah, there is no science on it. We're just trying to drive people indoors. Well, you're driving people indoors where it's more of a problem, right? Or the idea when we were articulating, various people were articulating, it seems like an awful coincidence that the Wu Chang laboratory is at the same place where and you just posited the theory, and it became you were shut down, or you were silenced.
You were xenophobic.
Xenophobic, yeah. I mean, remember all the times people were yelling at the then President Trump, now President Trump, for calling it the China virus and things of that nature. So there is that aspect of it. I've gone back, by the way, and looked at 1918 historically and what happened after that. And it's an interesting, history tends to repeat itself. But there wasn't a political movement that I think could be now arising out of the COVID era back then, which you are kind of asking for in a way, or trying to ignite, if you will, a movement to just throw all the bums out, so to speak.
Yes. I mean, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And I don't want to call them bums because, again, there are some good people. And I know there's a phrase, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I think you got to throw the baby out. I think you have to throw the baby out here, because if you start trying to parse and distinguish, it's never going to happen, because then they're going to all run and say, well, I was the good guy here. And that's what they're doing right now. Who is believing Mike Johnson when he gets before these microphones with that smirk and tries to pretend it's not me, it's them? And they say, it's not us, it's them. I mean, who is believing this shit? I'm
Well,
watching it. I literally can't watch it anymore. They're so full of shit.
if you were to I guess to back up my point or exhibit A, if you were to take Hakeem Jeffries and you were to take Mike Johnson, and if both of them got primaried out and were not reelected, then I think you would have something. I mean, and I think, to my mind, that is more of a
But then
realistic.
who gets in, Mark?
Well, I think somebody would get in at that point, and at least the politicians have a memory of what they can't do. And one of the things they can't do. And I'll come back to, I don't care about how much, I mean, if you were to do the two things that we just talked about and say no insider trading and you don't get paid, that would really force people right away to start thinking outside of themselves in terms of their congressional actions.
It's not going to solve this problem where they are unwilling to compromise and they dig in and they think it's a fault game. I mean, look, there's something really interesting for me at least over the last couple of weeks. Um, Governor Beshears was on
Omar.
Bill Maher, and I liked him a lot. And I was so disappointed. He just felt like this politician who was reading a speech that he had given 100 times before. And it was all canned. And I was so incredibly disappointed. And I'm off that train. And I liked him. And and it's funny because Bill then had his panel talk about how awesome he was. And I'm thinking, did I hear the same thing they did? Because I thought,
It's so funny you say that because I had the same reaction when he started talking to the panel.
oh,
I just said, this guy sounds like somebody hijacked his brain and told him you've got to test it and you've got to make sure that it's poll tested or anything else. I mean, that is not what the public wants.
no, but you know what they do want? And it's somebody that I heard, and I wasn't sure of him, but I watched him about a week ago, and I fell in love with Senator Fetterman.
Right. Who's made I mean, what a recovery from his stroke, right? I mean, remember,
You should have heard him, Mark. Mark,
yeah,
he was amazing because this was not a politician speaking, and it is one of the reasons Donald Trump got elected. But Fetterman, I the reason I was confusing it is I had a contractor named Futterman, and I keep confusing the two. So, but Fetterman was he was so authentic and real and unafraid to break from his party line, and you just believed him when he talked. And I realized I'm just craving that from people, and I just don't see it with almost all of these politicians. It's the same canned shit. And when I heard him, I was so impressed. And I've seen him before, but this interview really got me. And I just thought he was presidential material. I really mean it. I just thought he was fantastic
well,
because he was real.
yeah, he the authenticity, and I go back to just think back 18 months ago where he was post stroke and where he is now. He's made a tremendous recovery. And having watched people close to me go through that, that's no
Right.
easy feat to have that kind of a debilitating stroke that impedes on your speech and your motor skills and everything else. And then to come back and he is quick and he is real and he is on his feet. I think, to your point, he has an appeal that is kind of, he's able to go back and forth. Part of that may be his kind of lineage or pedigree. He comes from a very working class area, and he got to where he is, not pandering to kind of the what you're supposed to. He's been somewhat true to himself.
Okay, so um, get real with me. You on board with OWTA or not? Out with their ashes.
I am conceptually. I guess I'm too much of a cynic to think that the public will remember because there will be some event. Hopefully, it's not a horrific event. I mean, I'm hopeful that the air traffic control issue will be that 5 and 6 hour lines at the airport will get people irate enough to do something, or politicians who have to fly back to see their constituents, and that it would not be some godforsaken tragedy in the air because there were even more overworked than they already are.
That feels very Pollyanna to me. That
I
you,
know, but that's kind of the history of our relationship here on Two Angry Men. You tend to be very negative. You've got a negative view, and I'm very Pollyannish. That's just the different in our outlooks or viewpoints.
well, I see it very differently. What I see is you just thinking that you can wish something that will happen, which benefits everybody. And I tend to believe that you come up with a solution to the problem rather than just wish the problem away.
Well,
And
there's truth in both of those stances. You have to have the power of positive thinking, number one, and then you can also, at the same time, from that flows the planning. So I'll give you this.
wait. Okay,
You have
so
to be.
so you have the
You
power
have
of you
to.
have the power of positive planning. Fine. Then what's your plan?
Well, my plan would be is to take out leadership. I think that you can remember that. I think you can coalesce behind that. The whole idea and definition of leadership is in the word. It's you're supposed to lead. Leading is not a stalemate. If it's a stalemate, you never get anywhere. By the way, if you were in a real job, if I'm as a
Wait,
lawyer,
what do you mean if you were in a real job? What is that supposed to
I
mean?
was in a real job.
Oh, I thought you were talking to me.
Oh, if you're in a, by the way, how could you, if you sit and twiddle your thumbs and say, I don't know what I'm going to put on air, I don't know what I'm going to put on TMZ Live, and so therefore we're going to punt, we're not going to put something up. If I say, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to solve your problem to a client, so I'm just going to sit here in my office, I'm not going to go to court, I'm not going to file anything, that isn't a solution. You get fired. So why isn't it the same thing for a politician?
Because it's just not, and you know it. And the problem is they don't just have a boss. They've got this collective, and the collective never can get their act together. It's leadership, not leadership, and that's the problem. And you just switch it out, and you get
Wait,
somebody.
wait, that could be your little sub headline.
Well, it is. That's what
Yeah.
it is. And tell me the person with the seniority to be able to step into those shoes, and I'll show you another politician, because that's just who gets those jobs. And I'm sick of it. OWTA, folks, out with their asses. Vote against everybody in the primaries coming up if they don't immediately open the government. I beg you.
I love it. We'll see, Harvey. We'll see if you get traction here.
Okay, Mark.
And by the way, while you were late keeping me waiting,
I'm sorry about that.
that's okay because I'm going to pay back as a bitch. The last 10 minutes of this, your staff has given me, along with my staff, 5 truth or dare questions that we are going to ask you. Oh, yeah.
Mark.
Oh, yes. They've, I'm going to just, before we get to your new movement, here's one. What do you ever regret yelling at your staff?
No.
This is it. No?
Because I don't yell at him that much. No.
Have you ever felt guilty hosting a story?
No. I mean, we think about what we do before we do it.
Which staff member do you miss the most and want to hire back? Who's the one that got away? I could answer this question for me, but I want to know for you.
I'm not going to answer it.
Oh my God, why? HR is going to come down and hit you over the head?
No, because it would offend other people who have left. No.
Wow. Okay, who's been your favorite assistant and why?
Oh, come on.
This is your staff.
Okay, I'm just going to tell you, I love my assistants. I really do. I'm actually really excited because we're having our 20th anniversary, and Eddie Adams is coming. Eddie, by the way, his sister is Amy Adams, And I love Eddie, and I can't wait for him to come. Tyler Harrell was my assistant, and he's now a big director for Discovery, and I'm so proud of him. And I love Anakin. You know I love Anakin.
I
I've
know
had
you do.
Geo,
Although,
and I mean, I'm sorry. I love
well,
my
I have another
assistants.
question, speaking of which. Can you set your clock to when Anakin leaves at the end of the day?
No, because he stays really late because he's an aspiring screenwriter. So he'll stay here after work and he'll write his screenplays.
Right. He's
And
not doing work for you.
right,
He's
and he
mostly-
and when I leave, he's still there.
Okay. Now, why does Charles hate Diddy?
I don't think Charles has expressed hatred
How
toward
about
Diddy at all.
How about
And
extreme?
in fact, no. That's not true. That's just
You
not true.
push back on that? Okay.
No, I know it's not true. But
What?
you've done 5 already, dude.
Okay, I got one more.
Oh,
What story do you feel like set TMZ to the next level?
Mel Gibson.
Wow, without missing a beat. Huh. Okay.
And
I'd like-
and Mel Gibson, not just because of the story itself and the anti-Semitic rant and the whole thing. Bigger thing is that the massive cover-up in the LA County Sheriff's Department, where they tried to kill our story and threaten me. And that, to me, is the bigger story. And when we broke the Mel Gibson story, I spent as much time and maybe even more talking about what the Sheriff's Department did than what Mel Gibson did. Okay, Mark, that wraps it up.
Have a wonderful weekend, by the way.
You too.